Hey folks, welcome to part 2 of our Arcane Assist deep dive series on Vlad1. I'm Tim, joined today again by Evan.
How's it going? It's going well.
Evan is going to play what is a Vlad answer that I tested for a period of time when I was playing Circle. This is Kaya3. I am playing the same Vlad list that I played before, Vlad and Winterguard Command, with a minor tweak. From the list that I played previously, I have gone to a min unit of Mechaniks over the War Dog in the list. I decided based on our previous game, if you have not already seen it, it's the Fiona versus Vlad list, that a number of my jacks were fairly functional but missing key aspects. And just being able to repair them a couple of points in the late game situation would have made a big difference in that matchup. And I did not believe the War Dog was an absolute necessity. If I played my caster a little bit more intelligently and positioned a bit better with it, I feel like that wouldn't have been necessary.
God, Tim, just don't mess up.
Just don't mess up. That's the rule. And honestly, putting a lot of things that are a safety net in your War Machine lists and then kind of gradually removing them as you grow as a player and grow more confident in the list is a big part of the development process.
It's like training wheels.
Yeah, it's absolutely like training wheels, and they help you get to a point where you can learn more with the list. We talked a little bit about this deep dive series being focused on learning a list. I'm now ready to make changes to the list, tinkering with it a little bit, and I am now 10 games into the list.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I've brought Kaya3. Well, it's Tim's list, but it's pretty good. It's Kaya3 with a Druid Wilder for some great free upkeep that Kaya has. Kaya has Synergy and Fog War, and I'm going to alternate between them, so getting a free upkeep is pretty useful a lot of the time. My list contains Loki and Getorix. Basically, this is what I get instead of taking the theme list. It's pretty darn useful to have just two monstrous characters, Loki being really crazy with the Chain Pull and Repo 3. Getorix, just always scary. We have, in addition to that, a Pureblood Warpwolf for Wraithbane, as well as a lovely Assault Spray, and also benefiting greatly from the Reposition 3. Gorax Rager, because we don't have a Feral, we need some Primal tools. And in addition to that, 3 Scarsfell Griffins. Scarsfells are there to generate some synergy, as well as benefiting greatly from it, as well as having stealth is pretty good against rockets and rifles, I guess.
Yep. Key piece of this list, I think, is really the Gremlin Swarms.
Yes, they're really incredible. They are incorporeal. You don't have a lot of magic weapons. They're stealth. You don't have any ways of ignoring that.
Yep.
Not that you had magic weapons to damage them if you could ignore stealth to begin with.
Correct.
And your jacks really don't like starting their activation base to base with them.
And they've got a little bit of counterplay to the Mechaniks, because if the Gremlin Swarm sabotage a jack, not only do they do pretty reasonable damage to a KHADOR jack, but they also can't be repaired that turn.
Yeah. So they have some pretty good tools against Vlad's list, so I think it's going to be a pretty good matchup.
Yeah. All right. Without further ado, let's get into the game. All right. So once again, big shout out to Ian Pongray, our local ex-press ganger at this point, but a really awesome guy who does some amazing things for the community at Black Knight Games. We are recording at our local shop, so this is at BKG in lovely Hamilton, Ontario, the southern part of Canada's most populated province. Ian is actually contributing a few things on this board. For one thing, it is his KHADOR army that I'm borrowing to do this kind of deep dive. It's difficult to have a list that you want to learn a bunch of things with if you already owned all the models for it and have played them innumerable times. So we picked this as a focus for learning a list because it's a list that I do not already own, and it is something that I did have to borrow from Ian. We're also using a set of terrain that Ian actually designed for the store, for the supreme virtue that is having some quite playable War Machine-centric terrain, the right kind of size, the right capacity, but that still gives us the option of having that 3D terrain that we prefer for the camera. Probably Ian will eventually put together a couple of trees or something to put on those little clumps of forests, but the lovely stagecoach house he's made at the top there fits really well with the rail yard terrain we were playing before. And we've also got a little caboose car in the top right corner of the board there. And the piece that Evan is playing in front of is rubble. So it's a flat planked area with a bunch of kind of stacked crates, presumably to be picked up by a train. They're all completely removable, so it's a really, really playable piece of 2D terrain with the really visual effect of 3D terrain.
And the boxes say guns on them.
They do say guns on them in the KHADOR text.
Yeah. That one just says guns in normal text.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
The flags he made.
Yeah.
The top left one, I believe, reads "Trespassers will be shot."
Correct. And the one on my side of the board that I get to use, I believe, says Portents on it.
Ah, right, because the town's name is Portents.
Yeah, because it's a sign that says Portents. Because it's a KHADOR joke. Who said Grimkin were the only ones who could have dad jokes, right, people?
No. Stop it.
All right. So, a couple of details about the unpacking on my first turn. The advanced move on all 5 of the jacks gets them way, way up the board, so I can project a ton of threat. I'm expecting a primarily melee-focused assault from Evan's army, especially with the way that those pieces have to work. So I'm leading with the jacks and keeping my more delicate infantry safe from things like an assaulting pureblood spray. I also had some terrain around which to unpack. I feel like Vlad benefits really, really dramatically from going first when it means he gets to position his entire army. I ran Vlad right up the middle of the board. He's got a ton of sack pun targets, so I'm not really worried about his health. He didn't cast any spells, but he did dig himself out of that forest, and he's right in position to walk straight forward and signs importance the entire board.
So I deployed super heavily to the left with nothing but a gremlin swarm really on my right-hand side of the board, so top and bottom, top being left, bottom being right. Gremlin swarm on the bottom. He's basically gonna go do whatever he likes because nothing on that side of the table can bother with him. So his plan is to just go stand next to that flag, contest it, so Joe can never score on it.
If Vlad boundless charges himself, he can charge it with his magical melee weapon.
I'm okay with this.
It's real bad.
Yeah.
I can razor wind it from 5 inches away.
Yep.
Gremlin swarms are ridiculous. Like right now, 3-point gremlin swarms in this list fully deny a huge portion of the scenario and mean that Evan doesn't really have to commit very much at all. Unless he just accidentally throws them away, they can contest those zones indefinitely.
Mm-hmm. However, regardless of that, Tim has put me in a very rough position with just how aggressive he can be with the advanced move and then running his jacks to already be in the zones and basically threaten my entire half of the table. I come up with a bit of a cheeky little plan here. That gremlin swarm is just blocking out a large base's worth between that wall and itself, and I'm putting Loki in such a way that if Tim wants to come get me, he can't do it directly. He'll have to feet, and he'll have to go through the gremlin swarm and go sideways. And I'm going to plug that up with something else later on down the line. This first Griffin has moved up behind the house, and he is planning on just hiding there, making it awkward for a Marauder to charge it. Hopefully going to live when something goes in on it. What's it called? Wayfarer moves up because he's basically the only thing letting me out-threat things, and that's only when it's not Tim's feat turn. So he's pretty integral to how my list is going to play after Tim goes in super hard and feats.
The feat for Vlad gives him... I mean, the weird thing about Vlad is he really can't afford to allocate a bunch of focus to his jacks, but signs importance. And he really can't afford to cast Boundless Charge a bunch of times, but with the combination of the feat, a charging KHADOR heavy with a 1-inch melee range, and Boundless Charge, his jacks threat 14 inches with a free charge in Pathfinder. That gives them their 2 melee initials, in most cases, or in some cases with Marauder, a combo. Potentially a boost to hit with Signs Importance, but possibly just a bot attack. It means that Evan, as my opponent, has to respect a 14-inch threat range all the time, even though it's really difficult for me to leverage that more than kind of once on one thing.
Yeah.
But it could be anywhere. So I've got the opportunity to make it the most profitable 14-inch charge on the entire board.
So here we go. I've moved up a Scarsfall to plug that one hole I was talking about next to Loki. He put up Elusive because as much as it's Mat 7 with Signs Importance, so it's pretty likely to hit, as long as he misses one of those attacks, I can dodge out of the melee range and be pretty safe.
Yep.
Move my Pure Blood up behind. Not feeling too threatened because I have stuff in the way. And Kaya's just going to park herself in the little bubble behind Loki and behind the Pureblood and feel pretty safe with all of her beasts just in the way. Getorix is well out of charge range, ready to retaliate against anything that comes in. And I move up, Fog of War, Soothing Song, Camp 2, have 4 Fury out on the board, feeling pretty good. The Druid Wilder is just going to move up next to Kaya, probably going to score on that flag in the later turns once I've cleared it out.
Pretty good plan so far, and you've definitely given me an awkward kind of choice with the way that Gremlin Swarm's positioned. I've got a couple of options here, and I weigh them carefully. One of them is if the Marauder in the top zone goes in and kills the bird, which, as Evan has pointed out, doesn't involve no dice, I can combo smite it, do a pretty reasonable chunk of damage with a combination of Signs Important to charge and slamming it into Loki. It'll be knocked down, so maybe I can kill it with some like guns that are within 11. I do those measurements. I don't have any guns that are within 11 right now, so his stealth is going to be a bit of a problem. So I'd be relying on that Marauder killing it with the charge and opening up a spot for the Boundless Charge Juggernaut to get in on Loki. If the Boundless Charge Juggernaut gets in on Loki, he can probably kill him. I quickly abandoned that plan as involving a lot of dice, as I realized with a 14-inch charge, I think I can get that Marauder in on the Pureblood. If the Marauder gets in on the Pureblood and doesn't take a free strike, I put up Signs Importance and cast Boundless Charge on it. If it gets in there without taking a free strike and slams the Pureblood into Kaya, Kaya will be knocked down in range of a whole bunch of my guns, which is the current plan. In a protracted game, Kaya's got a lot of scary tools and a really powerful assassination, so I want to minimize the amount of game that we play here. So if I've got the opportunity for a fairly credible assassination early in the game, I want to take that. At some level, Vlad is a pressure caster. He wants to hold his pieces back, be really, really conservative with them, threaten his incredible ranges, and then do tons and tons of damage on multiple Signs Importance feat turns without losing too many pieces. As I'm forced to commit to those zones, and as Evan closes the gap between us, I do lose pieces, and that's rough. So the Marauder combo smites is successful, slams the Pureblood into Kaya, knocks both of them down, and does a truckload of damage to the Pureblood with this effective POW 20 and Weapon Master because I slammed into a large-sized base.
Yep.
It's pretty decent. Good job, Marauder.
This is definitely something I did not see, because I did not think the Marauder could go that far. And I knew 14 inches was a long range, but this is not quite what I was expecting. You managed to do a truckload of damage to the Pureblood. Less so to Kaya, you do 6. I opt to transfer it because I felt like 6 damage is more than I'd like to be taking this early in the turn. Yeah. And Kaya's only a 17-box caster.
Better than some of her previous versions, but she's armed 16 at this version. It's just pretty good, too.
Less good when she's knocked down.
Less good when she's knocked down. She has defense 7.
Yep, because
she has Fog of War. We're activating this unit of rifles with its 3 rockets, and we're going to let rockets do rocket things. Let me tell you this. Rat 5 rockets really like knockdown casters. Signs Importance hits. You opt to shield guard with Loki.
Yep.
Which is a really big deal here. Damage, basically irrelevant. Does some points to Loki. Second rifle takes a shot. Rocket, should I say. He spikes absurdly.
Yep.
And you
I transfer
use your second transfer on that one.
That one goes to a bird.
And just messes that bird up.
Yeah. Bird does not like it.
Not even a little bit. Third rocket does rocket things, hits, and this is dice -4, but they're brutal because they have that extra die of damage. So Kaya doesn't like that very much.
Yeah, she takes
takes a big chunk of damage, and now I'm shooting her with the
5
rifles.
Yeah.
They're all dice -6.
They roll super consistently.
Yeah.
They all do 3 damage.
Yep. The Signs Importance, just rolling a bunch of 9s.
Yep.
The Destroyer moves up, speed 8 because of the feat. He does hit despite rolling 2 1s. He has signs of importance. Boost damage on his nice POW 14 gun, dice -2, and does 11 more points of damage to Kaya.
Who doesn't have any transfers because she only had 2, and
Yep.
I used both of them. So that's the game. Quick one, but we're going to do a bit of post-game talksy about both Kaya and Vlad.
Yeah, one of the interesting pieces of feedback that we got from a couple of videos that we released, I talked about this a little bit on Facebook a couple of times when we released the Severius 2 versus Denegra 3 video. If you haven't watched that video, check it out. It is, spoiler alert, a brief video. Both those casters have the incredible potential for pressure. It's really important to us to feature real content. We don't fake our videos. When the good games are tight and well fought, it's because they're good games that are tight and well fought. And when a game ends in a really one-sided, crazy kind of gotcha moment, we want to showcase that that's a part of War Machine. That's something that we see from time to time. Like, I've played at tournaments all over the world, and I can tell you right now that it happens no matter where you go. Among the best players in the game, you'll get those crazy assassinations that just happen. And, among the worst players in the game, it happens too. You move your caster just a little bit too far forward and boom, that's the end of War Machine. Like, it has that intensity to it. I remember my dad was a chess master, so I grew up playing a lot of chess. And we talked a lot about kind of when I was really young and really early learning the game, when I was about 5 or 6, he talked about, your goal is to trade pieces and to get to that end game state and play a really, really good end game. And I was like, well, but you can win the game in the middle, right? Like, you can win in the mid game. I'm really good with moving bishops. I was pretty young, so I wasn't that good with moving bishops. But the point he made is, like, a canny opponent who's played more games will win a mid game. And I feel like the kind of potential for early to mid positioning based assassinations in this game is a lot like mid game in chess. It's really, really tricky. There's still a lot of moving parts on the board, but it means you can get hemmed in by your own things. It means you can really get stuck because, like, positioning in this game is so key. Sorry, Evan, I know I'm digressing a little bit. Did you have a thought on that? I mean, this kind of video?
Yeah. So we had a couple recommendations. Personally, the one I like the best is the one we're going to do right now and are doing as we speak, and that's talking at the end of the video, making it a little longer than it would be in just its own state as a game. And because if we were to just end it, it's you see it's 15 minutes or 18 minutes, or it's short, and that's the thing that a lot of people get turned off by.
Sure.
A recommendation was that we add some dead space at the end of the video and make it like it'll show up as 60 minutes flat or whatever. I'm not a huge fan of that personally, mostly because if we ever go over an hour, which we have,
Sure.
It goes longer. And inversely, a lot of people also do enjoy shorter games and don't have the time necessarily to watch longer games, and they'll be the ones that want to watch those games that are 20 to 30 minutes, and you don't necessarily know how long a game's going to be if we do artificially extend it by some dead time. However, I feel like this talk is also super constructive a lot of the time, and it'll offer a lot to people who want to dig that much deeper into the matchups. Not to mention, if you don't want to dig deeper into the matchups and are happy with the game, you don't have to watch this part.
Yeah, it's true. We've also had a lot of requests from folks
to this part.
who, we used to run a podcast for Arcane Assist, and the idea of exploring a little bit more topically, kind of digging a little bit deeper into the game and having the opportunity to do kind of a mini podcast at the end of a shorter battle report, that's something I'm looking forward to the opportunity to, have some more discussion points about.
So I feel like, speaking of going on to this more podcasty part, a large topic in a lot of the Circle Facebook groups has been, how does Circle just deal with KHADOR heavies or something like Vlad1, because it is just so oppressive. It has huge threat ranges, especially when it goes first and has that advanced move. It's just doubly so.
It's a really powerful list. That's one of the reasons we're showcasing it.
What do you think Circle has against this? What options do you think they should have? Or, like, what is What are a couple options? Like, what are casters, lists, whatever you can think of?
Sure. I genuinely believe this Kaya list is an appropriate response to it. I think it's a really interesting list that offers some of the stealth that Vlad doesn't want to see, and it offers some of the like the incorporeal that Vlad doesn't have an appropriate response to. Like, you're playing out a theme to get access to gremlin swarms first, and because you can take them, you're taking the cool heavies. Gedorix is probably a little bit expensive in this list. In different versions that I played, I broke him down into a couple of lights or a second pure blood and gave myself access to something like a unit of sentry stones. You could play something like Stalkers, who get prowl because of Fog of War. And then you could play kind of a yo-yoing game where you send in Berserking Stalkers into units of Vlad's infantry. Part of the problem with that is Vlad casts a really wide net, and with flanking forces, you want to go wider than your opponent does. You can't really go wider than Vlad does. If you look at the shape of the board, I've covered basically everything. And Evan's been forced to clump up really aggressively. One of the ways I used to play Thagrush 2 in Mark II was to send my entire army at one zone and just score 5 points in that zone, while something trivial but incredibly difficult to remove held the other zone. That's basically what Evan's doing with the Gremlin Swarm here. And I think it's a pretty effective tactic, but I think maybe if anything, I would have gone even wider on that flank. I would have had half your army on the other side of the flag and really pressured using that wall to leverage Kaya's Natural Pathfinder on Loki, some of those other tools, and just kind of use the wall to keep your pieces alive a little bit against those guns. I think you're playing smart with the way you use the Gremlin Swarm to pin in that approach. I think Circle players probably have to be smarter than KHADOR players to win this matchup, but I think that's kind of the experience you're looking for when you want to play Circle. I think what you're looking for is a faction that has to be clever to get its wins, but when it does, it can really dominate. And I think that's one of the things Circle does really well. And I think Kaya3 actually runs a pretty incredible gun line, especially with the use of a pureblood who can repo 3. Like, that's a big deal for them to be 13 inches away from their target. The biggest problem with Vlad is that crazy 14-inch threat range. Until you put Kaya where you did, I was probably going to have to feat to kill Griffins. And I think that's a win for the Circle player. What happens is I feat, go in and kill the Griffins. You swap to synergy, pop up those stacks, and you use your heavies to kill my heavies, ideally holding something a little bit back in reserve and not needing to primal that turn because of synergy. And then I send those heavies in to kill, probably it's Gedorix you stick up front first, and maybe because of synergy he gets the spiny growth. And then they kill Gedorix and take some incidental damage, and then the things that are left finish my remaining heavies. Now probably I send in 2 with my superior threat range. You trade down those 2. I get to send in 2 more because of Boundless Charge. And then you trade down those 2, which means you're in a late game situation where you're fighting a whole bunch of rockets and maybe 1 heavy without a lot of pieces left. Scenario's never been an issue for you, but those guns start to become a bit of a problem.
Yeah, especially because Kaya's a large base and she can't really hide behind a lot of things.
And she does have a shield guard, and she does have a big patch of rubble there, which are both nice for her. But yeah, it's tricky. I imagine you could use Soothing Song and just like a big camp to stay fairly safe with her, and that might help.
Yeah.
You kind of have to make some hard choices between Synergy and Fog of War. I think starting the game with Fog of War was really important, but getting over to Synergy at the right time is I think one of the most important parts of unlocking her potential as a caster.
Yeah. That definitely sounds reasonable, especially against a list with a ton of guns, and just losing that 2 defense is just so huge. Because really, you want to be able to have your feat and Fog of War up at the same time and be Def 18 and be really hard to kill. But that's hard to do if you also want to kill KHADOR heavies.
Yeah, I think probably you abandon that plan. You feed on the turn, you swap to synergy, and you just make use of something like cover in your repo. You come up, you love tap a KHADOR heavy with your 2-inch melee range, and then you repo back into that rubble so that you've got cover and your feet.
Yeah. So in terms of other options Circle has, because obviously not everyone's going to want to play Kaya3.
She's really cool, though. You should check her out.
She is very cool. I definitely wanted to play her pretty badly in this matchup. So you didn't get to see Scorn today, but
will
I'm waiting
at some
on
point soon.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think Kaya3 is a really good option.
yep.
I mean, Shadow Pack changed pretty substantially, but I think is a really strong spell against Vlad.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the way that you play that list is you have to Alpha Strike him really hard, and you have to be very, very effective on that Alpha Strike turn, and then you have to pull everything back really, really protectively, and you have to mitigate your Fury, and you have to be judicious with your use of Primal, and then you buy yourself a full turn, and he puts a ton of pressure on you, and then you have to do it again really well, and then you have to just be kind of brave for a couple of turns. I played the Kaya3 with Loki matchup against Dave Beauchamp, who's one of the best Canadian KHADOR players, and probably one of the best Canadian players. He is, after all, the captain of our first Canadian WTC team. But he played Butcher 3 in Winterguard Command against Kaya. And again, I put Gremlin Swarms in that list. They were almost invincible. He had Ruin, which helped mitigate Gremlin Swarms, but they also help mitigate Ruin. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. And I mean, I trade down heavies regularly. Like I have to send in pieces and keep bleeding them against his army. But Pureblood Assaults do a ton of work. Stealth does a ton of work, and I got into a late game position where I got to charge a forced evolutioned primal Loki into a dogpiled Butcher way across the board, over walls and through clouds, and just onto his face. And it it came down to rolling those dice, which I'm super happy about. Like that's a really strong matchup into KHADOR. I think Circle has options.
Do you think that you could play at all like a Wormwood super control game, like I stranglehold this heavy and I play super conservatively and try to kill things on the opposite side of the table, drag a couple things in with Hellmouth, maybe kill some rockets in addition to pulling a heavy in, and then now that's in threat range and your feet gets a lot of work done because you can't ignore the forest. Do you think that's a viable game plan? Or does the tree get too bogged down and eventually just gets shot to death because it's a tree?
The tree's probably fine. Strangely, native prowl is a big deal for the tree.
Yeah.
It can create its own stealth, which helps it a ton against KHADOR. And I think going back a year and a half, Wormwood was like the answer to KHADOR. It was really incredible there. But, and I say but somewhat cautiously here, I think your army starts to disappear.
I kind of had that vibe coming because you definitely can't stranglehold enough heavies, and a lot of your problem comes from like accurate guns.
Yeah.
And normally he's fine against accurate guns, but only for one turn.
Mm-hmm.
I had a kind of wacky off the wall idea.
Okay.
Chromac 1
Okay.
in the Wolfsworn theme, he gets a unit of Reeves that can trigger his Warpath.
Cute.
He gets an ambushing unit of Wolves that basically eliminates a unit of rifles for a turn.
Okay.
And has a weapon master mini feat if they want to go into a heavy eventually.
Fair.
And you kind of play this game where you kill some stuff with your Reeves, get a heavy to Warpath, go in, kill a heavy with it because you're playing Chromac, and that heavy can probably kill that. Or, also your Stalkers can berserk Wild Aggression through a bunch of infantry models pretty readily. And you can kind of play this aggressive game where Vlad has to keep backing up to cast Signs Importance because you keep casting Bestial. And you can play pretty aggressively with Woldweirds as well, where if he casts Signs Importance and goes down a bunch, you can Witch Hunter him.
Okay.
Do you think... I haven't actually done the math on the points at all. This is kind of just a thing I've been thinking of as we've been having this discussion. But do you have the points to have both of those units as well as like one or two Woldweirds and enough heavies to deal with this? Is this a thing that we're going to just do right now?
Yeah, I think we're just going to do this right now.
Because this, in my head, it seems like it could almost work.
It's weird. I came into Circle in a bit of a roundabout perspective because I love like 80% of the stuff in in like the Circle faction. They're some of my favorite models. Kaya3 was the first caster I ever played with them. I played a ton of Wormwood when the edition changed because I was just so excited for what I thought was like the most compelling narrative change for him.
Okay.
But I never actually played Chromac.
So I played Chromac 1 and Baldur 2 as my pairing. Basically, from the time I started playing War Machine, which was when Baldur 2 came out, like that book, Domination.
Yeah, I played a ton of Baldur 2 as well. Like obviously he's my bae, as the internet would say.
Yeah.
But I played Baldur 2 Wormwood as a pairing, and I played Baldur 2 Kaya2 as a pairing. And I played those two things. Like I'm more than 300 games into Baldur 2. Like he's one of my favorite casters. But Will Pagani is a notoriously capable Chromac player and has won a lot of events with Chromac. Like really knows his way around that caster. And recently compared the Child to Chromac.
Okay.
And in that, Tantrum can function a little bit like a pseudo warpath. And that made me look at Chromac a lot more, which is a weird way to have come to that.
Okay.
Like, man, do I love the Child and Grimkin, so I should seriously look at Chromac again is maybe a bizarre way of looking at the world. But I like it. I mean, it worked for me. So I don't know. It's something worth exploring, I think. To your point, you can get some things in this list. You have what? Reeves, Wolves, 2 World Weirds, Chromac, presumably Getorix.
And then some other stuff. I don't know. I might ditch a World Weird for another heavy. Because in what I have is Chromac 1, Getorix, double World Weird, Wolves of Ouroboros with UA, Reeves of Ouroboros.
Do you get free UAs in this list?
Yes.
So do you need the UA in the Wolves? I guess you probably
I just want Power Swell for maybe doing some dice against a KHADOR heavy.
I guess you're afraid of the guns a bit, so you might as well take the Reeves UA.
Yeah.
They can dig in or whatever.
Yeah, go to ground.
Do you have Death Wolves in the list?
I've been eyeing them. I've never actually put them on the table.
So they have that like
pseudo berserk overtake thing going on.
Yeah, I mean that seems pretty good.
And they can no, this isn't the theme where they can start with corpses, is it?
No, I think that's the other one.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
That's a little less tempting.
Yeah.
Because they kind of just get shot.
I mean, they have Prowl.
Anyway, not the point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also think IR is pretty good. Like, it helps either Getorix or whatever your other heavy is stay alive. Or yourself, even.
Yeah. I guess you put Stalkers in this list? Is that what you did?
Yeah, that's what I did. Because you can get Warpath for the threat range, go in, kill a thing with a Stalker, and sprint away.
Are you assuming you just can't afford a Primal, like hard stop? That seems likely.
That does seem likely.
Yeah, there's something here. There's this is stuff to be tinkered with.
I don't know. That's my weird, crazy theory.
If you guys want to puzzle through this and like send us feedback about the notion of a Chromac list that could deal with Vlad, I'd be keen to check it out. I think the Wild Hunt's an interesting place to start. I don't know if you'd run more ag or not. I feel weird always ambushing like one of the 2 main units you take in your list. Like you've got 15 points that's just not there for 2 turns. That said, if they tie up a rocket unit, that's super cool. If they concentrate your rockets more tightly together toward the middle of the board, and it means a stalker gets to go in on them, that's pretty good too.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
It's interesting. Getorix also gets to do kind of a cool stalkery thing in that list.
He does.
Because he has Overtake as a bond.
He has Overtake, and you can Warpath.
Yeah, so you can do like walk in, kill something, move 4 inches, and then kill something, move an inch, kill something, move an inch, kill something, move an inch, which means you've got the potential to get in on Vlad way earlier than you'd expect, because Vlad tends to cluster pieces up to be more protected from your guns, and you are bringing a fair number of guns to that list. You're saying, like, I brought all these Reeves, like, they can take shots, and they can maybe peel back infantry pretty effectively.
And you have magic guns, too, because your Wold Weirds are magic.
Yeah, your Wolfbeards are magical, and they have Purgation, which doesn't actually affect anything
it doesn't,
in this matchup.
Doesn't matter.
But it maybe helps some other matchups. And they've got multiple shots, so you can kind of chew through tough infantry, which Vlad often has with Joe. I don't know. It's maybe worth checking out.
And if you ever get to proc Witch Hunter or Arcane Suppression, Vlad will have a very bad time.
Arcane's, I don't know. Sounds Importance being 5 instead of 4 just doesn't seem like that big a deal to me.
Isn't Windwall 3? So don't you just not get to cast both?
That's fine. You just never need to Windwall.
Oh, okay.
Like, the thing is, you have magic guns, and if you shoot me 15 times, I don't care because I just sack bomb them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, fair points. Fair points.
Yeah, anyway, I think that would be an interesting list. I'd be totally cool to try it out or to toy with it. If anyone wants to send us a list, I'd be happy to. As previously stated, we do take requests and are more than happy to play matchups that you guys want to see. As I say, I did 1 game at 1 for the Vlad list. This is the 2nd game we're featuring for the channel at 10 games. I think we'll probably do 1 or 2 more Vlad games over the course of the summer for you guys to enjoy, and then do a deep dive on something a little bit different.
We say over the course of the summer, but we mean we will film them in the summer, and they will probably come out in September.
That's true. This is coming out.
This one will be coming out.
It's summer till the end of September, right? Like September 25th?
I'm a student. That's not true.
21st or 21st because of the solstice.
I'm a student. That's not true.
Well, it's... Okay. Fine.
Summer ends when I have class, damn it.
Okay. We will film and feature more Vlad games for you to enjoy soon, and then we'll begin a bit of a deep dive on something else. It's possible that it will be a deep dive on the Dreamer. Let us know if you agree with Tim and think that's an awesome idea, Team Tim, or if you agree with Evan and think, what was he said?
I think that's just like John and Evan get tortured for a month.
If you agree with Evan and think that would not make a particularly entertaining video, then we won't do that.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be entertaining for the viewers. I'm saying it wouldn't be entertaining for me.
But you'll get good, Evan. You'll get good.
Whatever.
All right, guys. Thanks very much for checking us out. And thanks for joining us for another of the Deep Dive Thursday video series. We will see you next Monday.